Welcome to a brand new podcast. Ian McLean is a writer and the author of TJS War. David Blair is an actor and the narrator of the audiobook TJS War. David and Ian have been listening to their readers and listeners and have decided to turn TJS War into a movie. And since the story covers the entirety of World War II, the movie will cost at least $50 million. Will David and Ian succeed in their quest? Follow them in this podcast series. We're going to make a $50 million movie.
We're back.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 30 of this podcast. We're going to make a $50 million TV show or movie. We're following on from last week's conversation with David and Mark, and we'll be doing a little bit more of the same as we go through this week's conversation, providing our thoughts, feelings, and so on. You know where we are at the moment. Producers are back, and we're now going to get right into it.
At the end of, because of actions that TJ took whilst in Norway, he is introduced to this to a Norwegian general called Ruger, and Ruger recommends he gives TJ a letter for TJ to give to his superiors back in England, and it transpires that letter says this young man bearing this letter was capable, brave, blah, 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 and because of the specific things he did, he may well have gone on to save hundreds of Norwegian and Allied lives. So as a result of that, the powers that be happen to agree, and they put TJ on what the very early days of the MI6 and the training program to, in effect, become a spy and be dropped behind enemy lines doing all sorts of covert stuff, which those who have read the book will be familiar with, those lucky people, or listened to my incredible rendition. So
I agree.
Man, could you imagine being that kid that's being told you need to go to a certain location away from the front lines, and you're going to go to the general of the Norwegian troops and not know what the contents are, and then as the general reads it, it's about you. How cool is that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if your ears aren't burning already, like obviously carrying that letter all the way through to, your ears will be burning there, won't they? I mean, it's like when you go down to, you get sent to the headmaster's office and you've got like a letter in your hand to but it's a positive one. It's like when they send you down there, they've got a letter from a teacher saying that, you've done something wrong. But this one, it's like, just read this. He's pretty incredible. You should probably
promote him or train him for that purpose. But again,
train this man to be a spy right away.
Let me tell you, have you ever gone that where the note has been in praise of you? Quite frankly, I am queen of getting conversations with our principal growing up. So I don't know what this whole section is foreign to me.
That could be just dangling that little carrot at the end of the episode. Yeah, you're going to spy school, my boy. And it doesn't have to be a cliffhanger.
That's it.
Oh my God, yeah. Someone's involved in a car crash, and do they live? Do they die? It doesn't have to be quite that major. It just has to be.
No, in fact,
he's about to do what now?
That's in fact, I think that's better than dying in the car crash because you're not really. When I watch a pilot or when I watch episode 1 of a show that, let me put it this way: I actually prefer to binge watch shows. So when I see a new show that comes out,
a lot of people do that now, don't they?
Yeah, and when I see a new show that comes out that looks exciting, I'm like, oh, I can't wait for 3 years from now when I'm going to watch it, because I'm going to watch it when they've got 3 seasons of it, so I can just watch it back to back to back. I don't want to wait a week. What is this, 1984? I'm not going to wait till Thursday night at 7:00 to watch my favorite show.
On Apple TV are doing this at the moment. There's a really good show. I don't know whether you've got it out there on anything, but there's a show called Slow Horses with Gary Oldman as the lead.
Oh,
excuse me.
Wow.
And
I'm a fan.
Jack Lowden, who is one of the people we're considering for TJ. He might be a bit old.
Oh,
but he's very right for the part. Anyway, that's for a future casting episode. They're dropping them one a week,
Yeah, that's
and it's quite sort of plot heavy and complex. So you're, what? Who was this? And why didn't they have their head blown off last episode and so on? So I'm
that's
with
the way
you
that
on that.
yeah, that's the way they do it on the streaming ones. On the streaming, Shogun was out once a week, and
Oh, really?
there's
Initially?
yeah, because I was waiting. I can't remember what night of the week it was where I would get access to it, but and there's a show totally irrelevant to the kind of thing we're talking about called Bad Monkey that I watch. It's actually a pretty decent comedy drama, but I wait every Wednesday. I'm like, okay, it's time for Bad Monkey. So yeah, I do watch shows that come out every week, but that is the way they do streaming stuff. But yeah, I'm inclined sometimes to wait. Like I'm gonna wait 2 years before.
Yeah, that's a
It
good
was
shout.
like 5 years into The Walking Dead before I started it. I was
haven't
like,
seen that.
okay, there's 5 years worth of episodes. Now this weekend I can watch 5 years worth of The Walking Dead.
Obviously, they're talking a lot about how they like to wait for an entire season or something to obviously come out before they watch the whole thing. But obviously, we don't want that. I mean, this is a thing. Hang on, though. This is a conversation I don't think anyone's had. Do you think we're releasing episodes once a week, or are we releasing them as a big lump and then allowing people to go through them?
I
Because
think
I don't think we've ever had this conversation.
I think we're just so focused on getting the damn thing made,
Yeah.
Quinn.
But granted, but if they're talking about it now, I mean,
True. Look, I think it's really funny that you should say that. I wait. If I know a production like when Westworld came out, like Bridgerton, knowing that there's a 2-year gap between seasons. Even I did it with Sherlock. Even I waited purposefully because I knew I have a binge tendency about me, and I didn't. And I'm trying to delay the gratification a little bit longer because if it is released, weekly, or if it's released, binge watch style, I want to give myself the opportunity to really give into it and not be like, oh, I'm waiting for that next episode or it's done right away. I almost want to wait for the hype to end so I can watch it in peace and not in that heightened state of, oh my gosh, I must see it. You know what I mean? Like,
But do you
so
not feel that you then find that you want to talk to other people and because the thing that I love about seeing things weekly is I'll go see friends and I'll be like, did you see that last episode of TJ's War?
yeah.
Tell me, what is your thoughts? What are you thinking? How do you think this is going to end? That kind of thing. And obviously, there's that which obviously built up the drama around Game of Thrones. And obviously, we all know what happened with the final 3 seasons of Game of Thrones. We all know that it never let up to, never met the hype that obviously the first 5 did.
Right.
But the hype was the fun bit, was it not? Like the hype of wanting to know what's going to happen next. I mean, this is the whole thing with Winds of Winter. Obviously, Winds of Winter has been on its way out. I think probably most of my life we've been waiting on George R.R. Martin to release his new book, but the number of people I talk to that the hype is still there, they're like, what's going to happen in Winds? And it's like, we want that, don't we?
Okay, so it depends on the show. So I think it depends on the show. So if we even go back before the streaming days of yore, I got into Lost because Lost was like the first to get people online to talk to each other to guess what's going to happen next. And that was a weekly show, TV show no less, right? So terrestrial TV show. Westworld is one of those thought-provoking. Game of Thrones was thought-provoking, right? Because it was really like chess in a most violent, sexual, wonderful way, right? but to me, Bridgerton is not one of those shows that I will jump online forums to talk about. Oh, will they or won't they? No, each chapter, each season is encapsulated into a beginning and end, if you will, for the main characters. So yeah, no, intellectually, Bridgerton is not one of those types of shows. It's pure eye candy as far as I'm concerned, and it's making me drool just thinking about that eye candy. But shows like that are intellectual, that really make you think, is there something broader than what I'm seeing in front of me? then heck yeah, I could see where I want to be part of that hype, to be talking to the community in real time. I get you on that.
Sometimes these things are a slow burn as well. Did you say you'd seen The
Yeah.
Wire?
Yeah, and again, it had already been out maybe 3 seasons when I finally did it.
See, I'm extremely late to that party because I've only just
Mm.
watched season 1 of The Wire this year.
It's terrific.
And I wouldn't have stood a chance if I'd done one a week. I
Right.
just wouldn't have been into it. But it's such a slow burn, and you're
Yeah.
gradually starting to be invested in the characters, that, you know, if I wasn't watching 2 or 3 in each sitting, and then maybe another 1 or 2 the next day and so on, I wouldn't have got into it, I don't think.
That's the point I was trying to make, or that I wanted to make when you said, like, do we end it with a explosion, or do you and someone dies off, or do we end it with you're going to spy school, old boy? I think it's the latter, because
Yeah.
I'm not emotionally invested enough in 1 hour yet to care about whoever died in the car accident. Like, I don't know them yet.
No.
I've
No.
got to know them for 8 episodes. I got to know them over the course of half the season before I'm like, oh, I can't believe they killed off so and so. You know, so I think you
Well,
have
we
the
have got
story
quite a
and
big cliffhanger for the end of season 1.
season 1 or pilot, the episode 1.
Wow. No, season.
Okay, well, great.
Mhm.
we should. Well,
You heard it here
that's
first,
terrific.
Yeah.
So
I mean, there's so much in there. You could make 3 seasons out of it. I'm not sure. I don't know.
well, you know
I'm
what
not
they're
sure
gonna. You know
people
that
would.
Shogun, they ran out of book. That I just heard the guy who won. He won the Emmy for Best Actor. He's a famous actor here in Japan, and I'm forgetting his name. I've got it somewhere.
Yeah,
But
he was great.
yeah, he
I've
was
seen that, by the way.
also
It's
he
fantastic.
had a secondary role in The Last Samurai. It's not Ken Watanabe, but he was an awesome Hiroyuki Sanada. He won Outstanding Lead Actor in a Drama Series, and he was being interviewed on one of the late night talk shows in America, and that this came up, like, well, what are you going to do, because they want to renew it, but there's no more book, and they finished the whole story. And he laughed about it, and he said, well, the thing is, we didn't finish history. The history goes on. We just basically extend the history, of the Tokugawa shogunate beyond where the book stopped.
Is the book author still alive?
I don't know about that, because that book came out, because Shogun was actually originally
70s,
made
80s?
in 70s with Richard Chamberlain, and so the book was
I
already
haven't seen that,
then.
but I was aware this is another version, a remake.
This is a much better version. Although I did like the original. I was a kid when I watched it. Let me see if he's still alive.
But as you say, I think if you find a sympathetic writer that gets the feel of it, and why shouldn't it carry on?
Right, it could carry on. James Clavel.
History. I like that.
Here's a question I have for you. So they talk about losing the original, or running out of the original material.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think they should carry on with the show, or do you think it should stay pure to what's in the book?
I think it depends on, because obviously I've not gotten to the end of Shogun yet, so I wouldn't. But I think in general, I'm kind of the kind of person that would want to finish at the end of the book, like, because then you start, I don't know, then you start losing kind of the essence of the book as you go on. I think, to bring up Game of Thrones again, they ran out of book, and those last 3 seasons were a travesty. And it's obviously, you think about when you start losing the link to, I think Heroes is another one where I know it didn't come from a book, but like, they had a set story for a certain amount of time, and then the writers' strike happened, and they then had to kind of like stretch the story that the writers had kind of spitballed to a certain amount, and it was almost like they ran out of book there, and the last 3 seasons of Heroes were pretty garbage. So it's kind of like, I always worry that, I mean, if we were to do something like this, they get to the end of TJ's War, they go, okay, let's continue on, let's go a little bit further. Like, okay, they could start spitballing things that TJ did after the war ended, but you know, is it going to be very good? Because it's going to lose a lot of the essence of what Ian has put into that book.
I mean, you lose the original antagonist, which is the war,
Mm.
right?
Yeah, that's
I mean,
true.
you lose the what it's really like wired around, right?
Yeah,
You just remind me of a Sherlock Holmes, right? I love Sherlock Holmes as a kid.
yeah.
I still read the stories at night sometimes just
I
for
have
giggles. I
the
must have
collection.
the whole right,
Mm-hmm.
and I will at times listen to the Hollywood productions on, if you just go on YouTube, they've got the radio versions from the
Yeah.
30s and 40s, and then you've
Mm-hmm.
got the TV versions, and obviously Sherlock Holmes today with,
I do the same.
Benedict Cumberbatch. But again, is it still a Sherlock Holmes story if they evolved it? So, I mean, do we like the Benedict and oh gosh, what's his name? Benedict Cumberbatch and who played Watson? What's his name?
Oh, I can never remember his name.
He was in Lord of the Rings as well,
Yeah.
and
Um,
I see his
he
face.
played Frodo.
Martin
He
Freeman.
played Bilbo, didn't he? Martin Freeman. There we go.
Martin Freeman. So, I mean, is that because aren't we arguing the same thing then? If no, I don't think it loses it, but I would watch. Well, I also think what is it Mark Gaddis that did the production and writing? Like he does amazing work. So, and him and what's the other gentleman with him? But yeah, that's a great question that another one that one doesn't consider in the making of a movie or a TV show.
Yeah, that's what the guy says. Like, well, we finished the book, but we didn't finish history. And in fact, that is a tumultuous time in Japanese history that goes on for a few hundred years. So it's like they've got an infinite amount of source material. The guy who wrote
when was it again?
Shogun,
Roughly what?
The time period, 1600, because 1603. Let me put on my Japan nerd glasses. 1603
so Elizabethan
is
in the UK.
Yeah, I always do that too. Like, what's going on in America? And usually nothing yet. But it was started. The show is in 1600. It's in the 3 years that lead up to the beginning of what's called the Edo period or the Tokugawa shogunate that starts in 1603. So
still quite a way off when Japan sort of isolated itself from the rest of the world. We're still a way
actually
off that.
It's soon to come because the Meiji Restoration is what opened it back up, which was in 1868. So I know this is not a podcast about Japanese history, but I think it was during the Tokugawa shogunate that they decided, like, okay, we're going to become isolationists and no more Christian missionaries, no more trading. We're going to take care of ourselves for like maybe 150, 200 years. And then 1868.
Oh yeah, it was a long time. It was a couple of 100 years, I thought. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is right at the start of the isolationist period, but it's also considered a kind of a very significant period in Japanese history where Japan flourished in a lot of ways. But I digress. Back to World War II.
Yes.
Well, I wondered about the pace. How do you perceive the pace of it? Because TJ's War can go at a variety of paces. It could be a slow moving drama, or it could be, I mean, there are war scenes which are quite fast.
Yeah.
But...
No, absolutely. Absolutely. It's that thing of if you try and go too fast and show too much in too little time, it'll just feel like a summary document. And we need to give the viewer time to settle into it, digest, to absorb themselves into it. And I would have thought that the best way to go about that is to show the characters that we are invested in going through stuff. So we have to spend time in real time with them, in scenes, with them experiencing good stuff, bad stuff, what it does to them, how they respond, and so on. So I guess there's going to be a sweet spot between the important things, the things that tell us about their character, the things that tell us what the story is, and try and get as many of those storytelling elements in one scene rather than a scene that tells us about him and then a scene that moves the plot forward and so on. We don't want to separate them. The best writing does all that in one go. almost without you realizing. You just think, wow, this is good, isn't it? Well, why is that?
That's what we want. Have you worked on your
Yeah.
30-second elevator pitch? You get in an elevator with Steven Spielberg, and he's going up to the 26th floor. You got about 20
Oh,
seconds.
hello, Stephen.
What are you telling?
I didn't expect to bump into you here. How's it going?
Oh, by the
Yeah,
way,
no, we do actually. Yeah, we do. Yeah, we are making a film. Yeah. What's it about? Oh, well, we're sort of working on it. Yeah, it's because we're working on which chapters to put in which episodes, and if we include all the things that we want to include at this point, that was how we got to the conclusion that we probably will need 2 seasons. And as you alluded to with Shogun, once you've hooked people in with the first series, you make your money back on the second series. So if we can, whether it's a 6-episode series or a 12-episode season, then we think it'll be best to get 2. And at this point, we'll have quite a few in each season. But these are very early days, and we have many meetings with many different people to come who may say, forget it, it's going to be this.
I was just going to make a commentary between American and British TV. Is
Okay.
Us Americans like long series or seasons. We like long seasons. So we're used to having 21 shows per season. Whereas in the UK, it's like 6 to 8 episodes per season. Now, there has been some, preferences of what I've noticed is like we've been talking about Sherlock, right? Those are movies. Those are hour and a half long episodes. In America, we seem to like that 30-minute format, right? Which is really technically 22 minutes if you have to throw in all the ads and all that stuff. So like an hour-long episode is about 44 minutes, I think, of actual show.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that's traditional TV, if streaming even cares or not. Like, I wonder, one of the questions we'll get from the production side of the house is it cheaper to do contained episodes in an hour, or is it better to do that extended version but just have less episodes? It's intriguing to me, and I wonder if it's a cost issue versus narration storytelling issue.
I do tend to find, though, and this might be because it's got to be something to do with, I guess, screen presence as well, or at least kind of presence of property, where they put a lot more of them out, because obviously, you get, for instance, obviously, Simpsons is on season 30 something now, and you think they released 30 episodes per season, and then end of season 30 happens, and only a few weeks later they're starting season 31, and it's like, it's almost as if no one wants to wait for that for a year for them to bring the next season out and stuff like that. Obviously, you've got properties that people do want to wait that year and they're excited for next year. I mean, Arcane, for instance, I don't know if you've watched Arcane, but I have been on tenterhooks for the last 3 years since I watched it. I have rewatched it hundreds of times. They've said it's going to be 9 episodes. But, let's go. Let's just sign me up. I'm ready for this. But it's because, it's got that presence that people are still talking about it. People are still, interested in it between the time. But I feel like a lot of American TV shows, and forgive me for saying this, they're kind of like, you watch it, it's a bit like brain rot, and then you don't care about it for another, they have to keep it on screen constantly for you to keep caring about it. Because if you go like 6 months, you're like, meh, whatever. Like,
it's
I'll
forgotten.
just watch something else. Yeah.
You're right.
It's like NCIS. I think the perfect example is NCIS. My parents loved NCIS as I was growing up, right? And it was like, you had to watch it every week. New episodes coming out. We used to have like little watch parties and everything, where they'd be like, oh my God, Tony and Ziva, all this kind of nonsense. And then as soon as I stopped watching it, because I was like, oh my God, I love it. That's it. It's gone. I don't have to worry about it now. Like, it wasn't incredible. It wasn't this thing that was like world ending to me. I don't think about it. but it's because I feel like they have to keep that screen presence. I don't think we want to be like that. I think we want to be, season 1 comes out and then for a year people are going, what's going to happen next, rather than being forgettable. And I do feel like having longer seasons, you end up lowering the quality down, so that, you know, you end up with filler episodes, you end up with clip shows, you end up with those ones where like they just sit there and go, can you remember that time that, you know, and you just lower the quality of the episode by adding in, or the series by adding in, how I see it, a bit of nonsense, to be honest.
Yeah, you're actually making something that could have potentially been thought-provoking or fantastical. You're making it mundane.
And at that point, we will have to make a decision about whether we say, okay, fair enough, or whether we say, no, not with you. You know, we strongly believe
Right.
it should be this. And if we're being bent too far out of shape, then I think we would have to keep looking.
Well, I think there's enough of us involved that I think we can keep each other in check. You know, we've talked in a private meeting before about that. Sylvester Stallone, he wrote Rocky, and he went, and there were the first 2 or 3 studios, they wanted it, but they didn't want him to be Rocky. They didn't want him to star in it. And then he was living out of like Henry Winkler's car, like the Fonz from Happy Days. They were friends, and he was just the epitome of starving actor trying to make it. When they said, we'll give you $250,000 for this script, but we don't want you to be Rocky. And he said, you know, I'm not going to do it. I want to do a Sylvester Stallone impression, but I'm not. But, you know, he basically told them no. Yeah. It's not going to work. And so he turned them down and stuck with it. And, you know, it became the Academy Award Best Picture of the Year, 76. And so, I mean, that's guts. Yeah. And it was deserving of that. But my point is, there's enough of us, you know, that we can keep each other in check. Like, hey, we should go ahead and just go with the studio on this one. Or if we are in collective agreement, we say, you know what, screw them, we can do better. Let's hold out for the bigger thing.
Yeah, maybe we should not have it in English.
We should have it in Norwegian.
We want people to work a bit harder. Yeah. Actually, TJ does learn many languages, so perhaps we could subtitle those bits.
He can speak Gaelic, right? He can speak like the old Gaelic.
Yes, speaks Gaelic, and then learns. But there is a thing that if you grow up learning 2 languages or more, but let's say 2, the brain is kind of pre-programmed from then on in adulthood to be able to pick languages up more easily.
Yes.
Whereas if you just learn one and then try and learn another one later on in teenage or late adult life, it's much harder for the brain to learn the skill of learning a language.
Well, I learned Japanese later in life and can speak it decently. It certainly has made, when I look at languages that I'm not familiar with, I get, if it's explained to me what's going on in the grammar or whatever, I get it conceptually much easier, because I realize that, you know, if you don't speak any other foreign languages, you have this misconception that, well, everything's just literally, that you could just take the words I'm saying right now and you could just you just plug in the other languages words for those words and it would mean the same thing. And that is not how language works. No. You convey concepts, and you know, it wasn't until I could really understand Japanese and think in Japanese that I realized, like, you can't translate literally like that. Anyway, I digress.
Yeah, you got to think.
Yeah, you have to think in the language, right? Which is that's a big hurdle. But once you get over it, the world opens up. You know, it's like learning to read. Just
to finish on that point about what we're making.
Sure,
I'm sure that, I mean, whatever the subject matter, a compelling story, well told, there'll always be an appetite for that. You know,
I think that's agree 100%.
In its simplest form, I think that's what we've got to do.
I don't think anybody disagrees with that. I do think one of the next steps we make is we all start. next time we come together, we all need to have an elevator pitch, and we all need to pick out the good and the bad in everybody's elevator pitch, combine them, and keep refining that so that we all are on the same page where we can tell people in 20 seconds, this is what this movie is going to be. You know, whether it's
Yeah.
just like, hey, it's When Harry Met Sally meets Inglorious Bastards. Ian actually shut that one down, but you know, you get the idea. You tell them in like a sentence that, you know,
Oh, completely.
this
Completely.
is
Yeah.
what this movie is going to be, and it's got to be something that that person says, wow, I absolutely want to see that. I want to know what
Yeah.
that is, what that looks like.
Yeah. I was starting to answer this, and then we digressed and got onto other things. But I remember now when I was talking about which bits of the chapter to put in which episodes, and the fact that yes, we thought we would go to 2 seasons. There will be certain themes, certain things that emerge from that, and gradually, when we get our heads around roughly what this show might look like, the more we work on it, the more the answer to your question will come to the fore. That's why I didn't give an elevator pitch now, because I would mangle it. It won't
Well,
be right. So we need to
it
get
won't be right when
the
we,
idea of this.
yeah. Well, when we come up with one, it's not going to be, it's going to change. It'll change again and again, you know, but let's get a
Yeah,
skeleton to work from and put, you
yeah.
know,
There's a
things
show
around it.
called, a film called, it's not Arachnid, it's Anthropoid, which is it's the name of a film with Cillian Murphy, about a particular episode in World War II. But it's the name of an operation in World War II, hence the name of the film, Anthropoid, and not a particularly major film. It wasn't huge, I don't think, at the box office, but tonally and you know, there will be similarities between us and that, going forward. So that's one to watch. We can put that in the show notes as well if people want to.
Yeah.
It's a good movie.
Anthropoid. Okay. I'll take a look.
We don't want the kind of hero strides off into the sunset.
I don't
we're
think,
telling difficult stories about really, really difficult stuff, and yeah, we want highs and lows, absolutely, but we need to see the damage done to TJ over time.
Agreed.
And that's difficult. That's hard.
Well,
on that spectacularly positive note.
Yes. Well, you know, when you go through a process of anything, whether it's like losing weight or, I mean, let's just take that analogy. You know, you don't see the like half of a half pound that you lost that day, right? But then eventually 3 months later, you look in the mirror, you have that moment where you're like, dang, I've lost some weight. You know, like I feel a little lighter. I feel a little, you know, I can now, I really do see a before and after image that I have put in some work, and I'm a little more fit here in beginning of October than I was in July. And I have that feeling about where we are on the movie. It's slow going. We lose a pound or whatever here and there, but we're looking a little more fit, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah.
There you go.
All good.
Let's end on that.
I feel like obviously it's kind of interesting what they're saying, because that was how I was thinking with regards to, you know, how the process of this movie / TV show is going. Obviously, if you look back at where we were, well, 30 episodes ago, you think we were all sat there looking at each other going, okay, let's try and do this thing. And obviously, I think you've mentioned before, you were like, okay, this, you know, they're all passionate, but what on earth is going on here? Is this going to happen? But like, you know, we've spoken to people who, you know, have said, yes, this sounds incredible, you should do it. We've spoken to people who've said, this is how you need to do it. You know, we're taking steps as we go, and you're coming with us on a journey, and we all know where we want to go. And it is, you know, you're joining us as we are trying to get there.
As always, this is so much fun. Thank you so much. It's so nice for us to, you know, get our say behind the scenes. So I always have fun with you. Thanks so much, Quinn.
You do, Syya. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
See ya.
All right, till next time. Well, folks, if you're listening, watching, if you're still with us, I know you hate when people tell you to do this, but if we don't, you forget to do it. Hit the thumbs up, subscribe, follow, all that good stuff. It helps us out, and it ensures you'll see the next episode when it's recommended to you. Thanks for listening.
And go buy the book. Go listen to the book.
Do that.
It's really good.
There you go.
Ciao for now.
Peace out. All right.
To find out more about the book, visit tjswar.com. And to buy it, click on the Amazon link below. To accompany us on our journey, please subscribe to this podcast because we're going to make a $50 million movie.